Hello and welcome to Postmodern Mythologies, the show where we cover pretty much anything bizarre in the world. I'll be your co-host for today, Injured Cool, and with me again, I got Sammy the Snatch. How you doing, Sam?
Pretty fucking horrible ever since I got on here.
Whatever. Okay, you know what? Fine. Whatever. But today we're going to be talking about a pretty fun subject. We're going to be doing a basic once-over on aliens.
No, that's some cool shit.
Okay, you don't have to sell it so hard. I mean, aliens are pretty fascinating, personally, but there's a lot of misinformation.
Aliens
there's a lot of people
are cool. They are. They're neato.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, does anyone remember Paul? How good that movie was?
Shut up, Paul. Shut up, Seth Rogen. I don't want to hear him. That movie's fucking misinformation. The Greys are fucking enemies on this earth. Don't trust them.
But they smoke a shit ton of weed, bro.
No, they don't. No, Seth Rogen smokes weed. Seth Rogen smokes weed.
So do aliens.
Aliens do not smoke weed. Aliens eat us.
The Greys brought the weed to Earth to try and trigger a economic collapse.
The Greys did not have anything to do with marijuana. They had nothing to do with marijuana. The Greys don't want any of our human drugs. Okay, let's get on with it. We're going to talk about aliens today.
Aliens started Trailer Park Boys.
Rip in peace, Mr. Leahy.
Rest in peace, Mr. Leahy.
Rest in peace. Okay, so let's talk about Paul Hellyer. Now, for those unaware, Paul Hellyer is a Canadian World War II veteran, and after the war, he joined the Liberal Party. Became a member of Parliament for the Davenport Electoral District of Toronto, Ontario, in 1949. After the Liberal victory during the 1963 federal election, Hellyer became the Minister of National Defence under Prime Minister Lester B. Peterson in 1963, and he served this role until 1967. He became Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Minister of Travel in 1967 and served until 1969.
He oversaw the unification of the Canadian military's separate branches into the Canadian Forces, and after his political career became a prolific writer. He has authored 13 books since 1971, and the most recent being released in 2014, i.e., he is super legit.
Yeah, Paul Hellyer is one of the most credible UFO witnesses out there, because as we also know, that on top of his career, Paul Hellyer has informed us that Earth's governments are in contact with at least 3 to 4 different alien species, and that 4 have guaranteed visited Earth in the past few thousand years. And Paul has gone to numerous talk programs, podcasts. He has an interview with Russia Today, which is kind of heavily criticized by the Western media. And in 2013, he spoke at the Citizens' Hearing of Disclosure on the matter.
Which he gave an amazing speech on, by the way.
Yeah, we'll link it in the comment, and we might play some audio, kind of bookmark it here.
There are many species, and I'm convinced they have different agendas. Just like maybe the United States, Russia, China might have different agendas. So if you say, well, what do Earthlings think? Well, who are you talking about? Are you talking about the Russians or the Americans or the Germans or who? And I think there have been face-to-face meetings, probably with species who look very much like humans. And some of them come from planets in our own solar system. And they are people who could be walking down the corridors of the Pentagon and would be unrecognized. Then there are other species, such as the Greys, for example, which are very distinct in their looks. They're short, they have very large heads, very long arms, and very big eyes, and they're more like the ones that we usually see in the cartoons of extraterrestrials. They're not little green men, which we used to say, little green men from Mars, but they're short, dark-skinned, what they were designated as by the United States government, extraterrestrial biological entities, EBs. So the EBs, that group of them, look very different. And they may have an agenda which is quite different from some of the others, because there are different degrees of spirituality. And in the meantime, the MJ-12, this is the very small elite group that President Truman set up to manage the extraterrestrial file and to report directly to the president. They allegedly made a deal with the Greys to exchange technology and to allow them to do a limited number. That's a joke to say, but the deal was a limited number of abductions in exchange for technology. And that as a result of this arrangement, over the years, the United States has managed to what we call back engineer or replicate the extraterrestrial technology, both on the weapons side and on the transportation side, to the point where Dr. Stephen Greer, as witnesses, said about the flying saucers, you can't tell whether it's one of theirs or one of ours because they look so much alike.
For those unaware, the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure is an event held in Washington, D.C., where UFO researchers and eyewitnesses, who include military personnel and politicians, testify before 6 members of the United States Congress. I mean, it is put up by people who already believe in UFOs, but they get some pretty credible witnesses going, and it seems like an actual genuine event. Like, they don't seem to be in it for money or attention or anything. And, alright, so since Hellyer has gone on record to claim that there's at least 3 to 4 different alien species living on Earth or working with Earth governments, today we're going to go over 3 of the big ones. We're going to talk about Greys, Tall Whites, and Pleiadians. Anything you want to add before we go?
No, I say we get right into it.
Alright, let's start with the Greys. Now, gray aliens are what most people think of when they hear the phrase alien, and are described as being short with large head, black eyes, and these small slits for noses and ears. And of course they're gray, hence the name. Now, gray aliens are apparently a slave race created by another alien race, the reptilians. Which, we're just going to stop us here. We're going to cover reptilians in another episode. That is a gigantic can of worms.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, like reptilian and reptilian conspiracies and everything about that, like that's its own episode altogether. You can't summarize that very fast. And allegedly, Greys also come from the Zeta Reticuli star system. And just to specify, as I was saying earlier, Greys are bad. Fuck the Greys. They are our enemies. They don't like us. And apparently,
they're just
Greys
misunderstood.
Greys are not fucking misunderstood. They're not misunderstood, for Christ's sake.
They are misunderstood. You just don't get them.
Okay, no. We're going to talk more. The Greys are bad. In fact, the Greys first... I am bad, but I am not on trial here, sir. The Greys are the ones on display right now. In fact, we're going to talk about how the Greys are bad. Because the Greys' first contact with an Earth government was in 1933 when they reached out to the Nazi Party of Germany. Now, the Nazis actually turned them down because apparently they were already working with another branch of aliens. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But remember this, Nazis were working with aliens. Now, the Greys, after this, apparently made contact with the United States in 1937 in some degree. It's not really expanded upon. But the first real significant contact with America was in 1947 with Roswell. This is pretty much the famous incident of UFOs and anything to do with UFOs.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I've never heard of Roswell either until this research, this incredible research I did where I Googled terms.
Yeah, I've
truly
never heard of it
backbreaking
before.
labor.
Yeah.
Fucking backbreaking labor we're doing here.
Yeah.
During the first week of July 1947, a UFO crashed on a small ranch in Roswell, New Mexico. The wreckage was discovered by one William W. Brazel, and after a thunderstorm, he went to go check on the ranch animals around the area. What he found instead was a massive amount of ruined metal debris, which Brazel then took to the county sheriff, George Wilcox, who then showed it to the U.S. Army Air Force Major, Jesse Marcel. The official story of Roswell is that the crash was just some sort of weather balloon for an Air Force project called Project Mogul. Fuck that. We're getting into the truth here, because the truth is that it was a gray alien UFO which crashed, and the living grays that were in the wreckage were captured by the United States government and taken to a facility. And this cover-up was led by the Majestic 12, which was formed under former U.S. President Harry Truman. The Majestic 12 is a group of top scientists, military officers, and politicians who are tasked with investigating and recovering alien spacecraft for the United States government. The on-paper cover-up for this was handled probably by Operation Blue Book, which was the third version of both Operation Sign and Grudge, which the Air Force set up to search for UFOs. And apparently, they found nothing, which is a fucking lie. Now, the Roswell Greys, the ones who survived, actually went on to go talk to the President Harry Truman out at the event. And in 1952, the National Security Agency was founded to act as sort of a liaison between the Greys and the laymen of the United States to try to cover up and manage American dealings with them. So the NSA, on top of reading all your emails and looking at all your dick pics, they're also acting as a liaison with aliens. So fuck them.
Wait. The aliens can see my dick pics?
The aliens can see your dick. Like, we should probably talk about that, but kind of a side note, during one of the Snowden leaks, apparently he talked about aliens. Like, he talked about tall whites, which we'll get to in a bit, and that's kind of interesting, and it kind of backs up this idea that the National Security Agency was founded as sort of a cover for alien-related activity. Now, apparently the Greys struck a deal with their American contacts in 1954 during an extended meeting with Dwight D. Eisenhower over 3 days, which he masked as emergency dental procedures. Now, the deal that the Greys came with the U.S. was that in exchange for Grey tech and cooperation for space travel and military purposes, the United States government would allow the Greys permission to abduct and experiment on American citizens. And, side note here, this is probably why the alien abduction stories in the States only became so prevalent after Roswell, and specifically after 1954. This is when you start to see a boom of these things happening, because they struck a deal with the United States. And it's why the United States has all of the alien abduction stories that featured the fucking Greys. I'm telling you, man.
I'd like to also add that while Dwight D. Eisenhower claimed that he had a dental emergency during that time, that records show that Dwight D. Eisenhower never had any sort of dental appointment with any dentist in the area.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. You can look that up for yourself. It's public record.
Oh, really? Really gets the noggin jogging when you say. Yeah. Well, speaking of alien abductions, the first real famous one was of Betty and Barney Hill in 1961, who were abducted by aliens that were claimed to be from the Zeta Reticuli star system, and these aliens had gray skin. Sound fucking familiar to a couple guys we know, a certain race of aliens we know? Now, before the recording, when we were kind of doing little preps here, Sammy was asking me, like, okay, what's the motivation of aliens? Like, why are they even doing this, if they are doing anything? And there are a couple reasons for the Greys, what their motivation is. That, on paper, the reason they start abductions, for one reason, is kind of the reason we look at animals in the wild, in their native habitats, and occasionally take them on board for our ships or to our camps or whatever. They want to study us. Greys kind of want to understand how we work, how we think, how we operate, stuff like that. Now, another explanation for that is that apparently we're foods for the Greys, because the Greys, they don't eat in a traditional sense, apparently. They feed off of negative human emotions. Sort of like fear, anger, hate, everything like that. And it's why the Greys are against us as a species. Because if we're in torment, if we're in war, we're conflicting with each other, we all hate one another, the Greys are just fucking eating that up. They're lapping it all up. They love it. Now, Greys are not the only alien species out there. As we said, we're going to talk about a few others today. We're going to talk about a few today, And one of the other ones we're going to talk is one mentioned by Hellyer, the tall whites.
The Martians. Oh.
The Martians. The Martians. No, we're going to talk about the tall whites today. The tall whites, And then the other one, the Pleiadians, they both look kind of alike depending on who you're talking to, but apparently they're not the same. As the name implies, tall whites are taller humanoid beings who possess incredibly pale skin, and if they have hair, it'll be bleached blonde. Or they'll just be completely shaved. And later years of their life, apparently they can grow up to 8 feet tall, but besides that, they can pass for a human in almost any other circumstance. And most of this is according to U.S. Air Force veteran Charles Hall, and he claims that the United States has worked alongside the tall whites since at least the early 1950s, which again, that also matches with the first time that the Greys came to an official on-paper dealing with the United States, 1954 with Dwight Eisenhower. Apparently, the tall whites, they speak telepathically, and they have a strong affinity for the star Arcturus, although their place of origin is evidently unknown.
And see, that's interesting, because you think that any sort of species that would have a strong connection to a certain star or any place in the universe, that they would have that connection because it's very important to them. And what would be more important than, say, your home star system?
Now, it is probably true that they have some connection to Arcturus, and it could be where they're from. Though, if you want to really put on the tinfoil here, what if they're actually from the Pleiades star system, and tall whites are Pleiadians, they're just a different faction of the Pleiadian race? Now, I did mention the meeting in 1954 with Eisenhower and the Greys, because apparently this is also during those 3 days that Eisenhower met with the tall whites. And the tall whites tried to convince Eisenhower to disarm America's nuclear arsenal in exchange for tall white tech. And as we all know, obviously, Eisenhower did not agree and instead sided with the Greys for the reasons we mentioned earlier. And some witnesses have claimed to see tall whites and Greys working alongside one another on board the same ships, although this is unclear. This is personally very unclear. Now,
are they competing species?
See, I don't know. I actually don't know if the Greys and the tall whites are competing, because the tall whites work with the United States government right now, apparently, as well as the Greys, who have worked with them since the meeting with Eisenhower. So you gotta wonder, if they're both working through the United States, why would they be opposed to one another?
Well, it could be a case of, they're both trying to butter up the U.S. to try and make sure that they're a permanent ally to one side or the other.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That could be fair, but then you also got to wonder another thing, is that why just the U.S.?
It's the most powerful nation on the earth right now.
Why? I know, but why wouldn't more aliens be like the Soviet Union or whatever? I'm trying to get in there.
Maybe it's a case of why go for silver when you can get the gold.
Maybe, fair enough. And it also is worth noting that these alien sightings and everything only really started happening after the dropping of the atomic bomb. And since the Americans invented the atomic bomb, it could be sort of seen as they are the leader of science in the human species. Which, whether or not that's true, obviously, it's kind of irrelevant, but the point still could still stand that it's in relation to the United States making the bomb, so to speak. I mean, I don't know. A lot of the alien relations to one another is still kind of confusing. And in documents leaked by the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, it's alleged and apparently, if it's legit, revealed that tall white aliens currently rule over most American politics from behind the scenes. And these are the same group of aliens who assisted the rise of the Nazi Party of Germany through the Giza intelligence, which we'll talk about in a second here. Just in a little bit, we are going to talk more about Giza intelligence and the tall whites' relation to it. Now, it is possible that these tall white aliens who are ruling over American politics and were also members of the Giza intelligence working with the Nazis could be the quote-unquote tall whites, or they could be the similar Pleiadians. Because the Pleiadians also look like the tall whites. They're very facially similar, they're taller, they're pale, they're usually slender, usually described the same way. And apparently the Pleiadians come from the Pleiades star cluster, and have alleged to be on Earth in the past. And Cherokee legends state that the Cherokee people actually originate from the Pleiades star cluster, which could be the first known or documented instance of alien inbreeding. And want to say something?
It's very hot.
No.
Yeah.
No? Get your porn out of here. Get your fucking dojins of aliens and stuff out of here.
That's sex, dude.
It's not
sexy.
sex.
Sex.
Not sex.
It is sex.
No, it's not. Stop it. If you want to have sex with an alien, you're a filthy race traitor.
How dare you?
You are a literal race traitor if you want to have sex with an alien.
Fine.
The entire human race is just shamed of your existence.
Okay. As long as I can get my rocks off.
Whatever, man. You just go. Yeah, I don't even care anymore. Just don't have sex with aliens, kids. Aliens are bad news.
No, but they're pretty awesome.
They're bad news. I don't trust them.
They're good things.
Now, Pleiadians and or the Tall Whites are actually theorized in some circles to be connected to the origin of the human species. Maybe. It depends on what you want to see as alien theories. If you want to see the Pleiadians or the Tall Whites or the Anunnaki or a bunch of other ones. Like the Anunnaki is another one where that's another topic altogether. But you see a lot of this stuff in Mayan, Christian, and Egyptian cultures, so on and so forth. And the book Chariots of the Gods is really influential on the idea of aliens coming down and interfering with early human civilizations. Now, why is unknown, but the fact that so many of these gods are mentioned to be tall, pale, slender beings, like the Tall Whites, like the Pleiadians, if they are referring to aliens, it could be what they're referring to. Now, what is the end goal of the Pleiadians? See, the end goal of the Pleiadians is allegedly to advance mankind to their next evolutionary step, and to get us closer to reaching our galactic capabilities for travel, interaction with other alien species, everything. And this is why they wanted us to get rid of our nuclear arsenals, because while it did show that we were more scientifically advanced than we once were, being able to split the atom, they don't want us to destroy ourselves. Now, and a lot of people say that Pleiadians are like purely benevolent, they're like good guys, but I'd say the pure motivations of Pleiadians is a questionable idea, and Paul Hellyer agrees with me. He says applying universal moral alignments to alien races is just stupid, because it's like trying to do it for us, like as human beings, saying that as the human race, we have one collective goal. And that's absurd, that's ridiculous. And as we mentioned prior, it is believed in some circles that the Pleiadians, or the Tall Whites, whatever have you, are tied to the Giza intelligence. The Giza intelligence was a malevolent group made up of Nordic aliens who arrived on Earth during ancient Egyptian times and lived underneath the Giza pyramids. And now,
what do you mean by Nordic aliens?
Okay, so Nordic, I've come across this when we were doing our basic research for this. It's pretty ambiguous what the real differences between Pleiadians and Tall Whites are, because a lot of times you'll get the names like Nordic aliens is kind of a catch-all term for it. So that's why I'm using it here, because it may be they're Pleiadians, maybe they're Tall Whites, what have you. Or even Pleiadian. Pleiadian is another term I've heard, and that's wish I did more research in retrospect now to what the difference between a Pleiadian is, but yeah, fly by the seat of our pants here.
We're very low budget.
We are very new. This is a new show. Did you guys know this? We're not good at this yet. We're trying to be good. Please don't hate us.
Fuck you, we're the best.
No, don't insult our audience. Please.
Fuck you, audience.
No! Oh, fuck, I gotta turn that down. Jesus Christ. My audio just spiked there.
Suck my reptilian wang.
You are not a reptilian, Sam. You're not a reptilian.
How do you know?
Fuck, you're right. You're fucking right. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. You got me.
No.
You got me. Now, it was also mentioned prior, the Giza intelligence were the aliens that worked alongside Nazi Germany and who beat the Greys to the punch with assisting an Earth government with their own tech and advancements. And this also links to an idea in the concept of esoteric Hitlerism that the origins of the alien race come from descendants of Nordic aliens who interbred with man, and that's why they were superior to us. And while the Nazis may have lost the Second World War, the Giza intelligence is alleged to have escaped with the then alive Adolf Hitler to Antarctica, and they've been hiding under the ice to one day come out and rebuild the Fourth Reich. Which, I'm just saying, if those are Nordic aliens and those are Pleiadians, that sounds pretty fucking evil. I mean, if you have to hide under Antarctica, I don't think you're a good guy. I'm just saying.
Nah, you just don't get it.
The ties of Nordic aliens to Nazi Germany make it all the more suspicious that tall whites, who could very well just be Pleiadians under a different name, have worked or are working with the United States government, the same United States government who adopted Nazi officers and scientists into their fold with Operation Paperclip, including one Dr. Werner von Braun.
It could just be a case that these aliens are, they're just following whoever is most powerful at the time. Or what they perceive to be the most powerful at the time.
Which is true. It could be the case that all they're doing is just power, power, power. That's actually more unsettling to me. Is that if all they're doing is through pure strength alone, then I don't know if that's by our definitions benevolent creature, a benevolent race of creatures. I don't know. That sounds kind of like they're looking for the ones who can beat the rest of the world into submission.
Nah.
Like, just looking for the strongest blunt object they can smack everyone else with.
No, you just don't get it.
I don't get it, which is why I don't trust the fucking aliens. I don't trust these fuckers. Goddamn space aliens.
Once you've made love to a few aliens, you learn to trust them very quickly.
Implying I can ever have a sexual partner. Implying.
Hey, you've had some. They may not have existed on the same plane that we do, but you've had them.
Yeah, man. I have had interdimensional sex. I've truly lived. The rest of you are just on a lesser playing field than I am in my love life.
All of you plebeians just having sex with physical people.
having sex with the physical entities in the year 2017. Get out of here. It's like, look at you fucking brainlets. We should stop talking about stupid memes. We should stop that. Now, Braun developed the V2 rocket for Nazi Germany, and after this, after he left for the United States, he worked with the military, and then NASA, eventually directing the Marshall Space Flight Center. Now, this is all speculation, but Braun could have ties to these Nordic aliens, considering that he developed what would become spacefaring tech for both Nazi Germany and the United States. And the fact that tall whites have had direct links, apparently, tall whites and Pleiadians, have had direct links with both Nazi Germany and the United States of America. And also, I'm going to say it again, I don't know the relationship between the Pleiadians and the tall whites. The fact that the tall whites apparently have ties to the Greys. So it's unclear if the tall whites are just part of the Pleiadian race as a broad term, or if they are their own separate entity, or maybe they are just a version of the Greys. And yeah, I don't know. Pleiadians, I don't know too much about Pleiadians, honestly. I mean, I personally do think they have some tie to the tall whites, but that's all speculation on my part. Okay, got anything left to say on aliens? Because we're going to cover reptilians in another episode down the line, as I just said, not too long ago.
I do have a warning for our viewers. Do not search up alien porn. It's really not that good. It's
bad. In fact, here's a life advice with Indracool over here. Just don't watch porn. Just don't watch porn. Just you don't need it. You don't need...
Alright, well... Okay, you know what? If you get a life advice section, so do I. Fine. You know what, kids? Watch all the porn you want. And you know what? Cocaine is okay.
Don't do drugs and don't watch porn. I'm just saying. Just live a nice...
Watch all the drugs and do all the porn, okay? Watch drugs and do porn.
No. We're going to have a disagreement on this. Because, how are you going to reach the stars to kill the aliens if you're too busy jacking off?
Because you'll be flying high. Hey-o!
Hey! That was episode fucking 4 or whatever of Postmodern Mythologies. We're going to wrap it up right here.